Hey everyone, Sycra here, and these are just some ship thumbnails I did, and I usually never do vehicles or ships, but I showed a friend of mine, Chinese Spartan, these, and he thought maybe it would be a good idea if I did a tutorial on how to, generate thumbnails like this, and I don't think I'm very good at concept art, especially hard surface stuff like ships. There are much better people out there who have YouTube channels, Scott Robertson, Feng Zhu, Cynics. But I thought, okay, I'll go ahead and show how I sort of get designs like this. Okay, so I'm starting out in Sketchbook Pro 6, and I'm using the chisel tip pen, and that's so that, if I go in one direction, I get like a fat line, and if I go in another direction, I get a skinny line, and for some reason, I just find it works so much better for creating interesting shapes. And, if you have traditional media, if you have Copic markers or anything, and you just use a chisel tip side of your marker, then that'll give you the same results. So yeah, I forgot to mention, I started on a background layer and then I filled that with that sort of light purple color, and then I created a new layer so all my silhouettes are on their own layer and not directly on the background, because if they were on the background I wouldn't be able to do the rendering process. So yeah, so when I try and think of ships and designs and stuff, again, I mentioned I don't really do ships. The designs I started out in the intro with were just my first real try, and so I'm pretty much a noob, and I'm really struggling with a lot of these, but I do try and think of just shape. And so I might not be able to create plausible designs, but maybe I can create appealing shapes, and then if you create appealing shapes, it sort of looks like, yeah, it looks kind of cool. Maybe it'll work. So I think the key is focusing on balanced shapes, but that doesn't mean symmetrical. It just means, in some ways, it's the opposite of symmetry. Like I'll think of having a heavy area, and then maybe it's smaller, and then like a longer area that is less heavy, more light, and then stick them together. I'll think of shapes that are either they're very horizontal or maybe they're very vertical, but I don't want to get very square designs, And I think the chisel tip really helps to just make it so that you don't get a very regular shape to begin with. And here you can just see how much I'm struggling. And I don't think, I don't know, sometimes with art you just have those days where things seem to work and everything goes smoothly, and this was not the case for me when I did these. It was just, it was a bit more painful than the ships I showed in the beginning, which just sort of, I did that in an hour and a half, and it just sort of flowed very easily and very nicely. And this one is a lot more of a struggle. So now I'm in Photoshop, and I'm just creating some colors on their own layer so I can sample those, and then I can start blocking in value. So I used a clipping layer that's clipped down to my silhouette, and now I'm working on a layer underneath everything to paint in some windshields and propellers and things. And now I'm going to the layer on top that's clipped down to the silhouette. So that's why I can, erase and redraw and paint, and it stays on the silhouette, because it's just whatever I paint on this layer, it only affects the silhouette. So yeah, so that's all I'm doing now. Putting in windshields where I think they could go. And again, I'm just looking at the shapes and thinking about balance. Like, how much negative space do I want? I don't want equal amounts of positive and negative space. So I don't want a windshield that's very big, or actually, very big is fine. I just don't want a windshield that's equal in proportion to the not windshield part. I want the negative shapes and the positive shapes to be clearly different. And that's what creates more interesting design. For the bottom one, I decided I don't want a windshield. And some of these designs are working, and some of them are just, I have no idea what's going on. And I think some of them, when I was using the chisel tip, I didn't know what I was doing, but maybe I started to see things. But then when by the time I brought it to Photoshop, I sort of forgot what I was seeing in the mess, because again, you're only defining the outside shape, so you have to sort of imagine what's on the inside, and I think I forgot what I was trying to do for the inside parts. So yeah, there's a couple of designs here, more than a couple, that are really not working. But there's a few that I sort of like, and there's a couple that are a bit more vertical, and there's one like in the middle, on the top middle, and that is sort of fish-like in design, and I was doing that with my other designs too, and I guess it's because I'm not comfortable with non-organic shapes, so I just tried to make something more organic and like a fish. And you can't go wrong if you base things on nature, because so much design is based on nature. For instance, the one I'm working on right now, well, why does that look fast? Why does that shape look fast? Well, it's aerodynamic, but you see those type of aerodynamic shapes in birds, in their beaks or their heads, or sharks as well. You know, you get those same type of stretched out shapes. So that's why nature is awesome to just study from, because what is powerful, what shapes are powerful. Well, look at a powerful animal, like look at a bison, and it's very big and blocky, and it's got weight in certain areas, and it's heavy in the front, and that conveys to us a very aggressive, heavy, strong thing. So then you look at tanks or something, and it's like, yeah, they share some of those design sensibilities. So now I'm using like a yellowish tone to create some kind of accents. Again, I wasn't having a great day when I was doing these, so I really struggled. I put, you'll see over and over, I put something down and then I erase it because it's no good, and then I redraw it again, then I erase it, and yeah. So now I'm adding some highlights to the windshields, just giving it some more dimension, and it's so easy to do this because everything's on its own layer, and because everything's clipped down to that silhouette, that because the silhouette's working, I don't need to worry about anything else. And now what I've done is I just made a new layer, and it is a color dodge layer, and I'm just using like a middle gray. And so if I just lay over, I think I'm using a soft brush. Maybe I switched to a hard brush, I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm just laying over the tone, and if I go over and over and over the same area, it will progressively get lighter because this is a color dodge layer. So that's what I'm doing right now, bringing out some form. And man, there's one ship that it's just so ugly, but it's on the left side near the middle. There's like 3 in the one that's on the most right in that cluster of 3. I don't know if you can see it, but anyway, back to the others. So I think design is one of those things that it's weird, but if you just draw, you don't have to draw ships, you don't have to draw animals, you don't have to draw monsters, you just keep drawing. You get better at design, and then that applies to everything else. Something I've started to really appreciate is that cool shapes work no matter what, because that's just good design. So if you have a figure if you're doing a portrait and you have cool shapes in there, cool shapes in the body, and by cool shapes I mean like not just a basic symmetrical shape. Like a bean has a kind of a cool shape. Shapes that maybe one side is curved and the other side is straight. That's a cool, it's pretty cool. Those type of shapes, they work really well regardless of what you do. It will just create good design. So once you've got that, then you can sort of break that down into many other things. Okay, here I'm fixing that super ugly ship, and it's still going to be not great, but I like it a lot more than the previous design. And yeah, these things are thumbnails, so you could definitely comment on how the perspective is all messed up, or these ships would not work. Again, I know nothing about vehicles. I know they need engines. I know that like a cockpit, it's a good idea to have one of those. And then the rest, it's just like, well, these are spaceships, I guess. And for this ship that I'm working on right now, I don't know, I sort of thought the front is like a rail gun, and it shoots out energy. And I don't know, that was my intention. I wanted it to look more evil. So I don't know, I thought, oh, I won't use yellow, I'll use red, because the black and the red will look evil. Didn't quite work, but anyway, I wanted it to look more aggressive, and I'm adding like little cut lines in places, and here I go trying to add some energy for the railgun, so it looks like, yeah, it's shooting stuff, and that's gonna shoot you with its pink energy beam. And yeah, so now I'm focusing on some internal shapes that maybe I could bring out some more shapes on the inside, not just the outside, because there's, the outside silhouette, but there's also the inside. I guess you wouldn't call it silhouette, but it's, the shapes. And I want to make good shapes there. I want to make this thing seem somewhat plausible that it can move. So I'm giving it an engine of some kind, or thrusters, or I don't know. I actually don't know what things are called. So yeah, those things. And this ship didn't look like it could move at all, so I'm just giving it some stuff too. Yup. So I don't know if this is helpful. I think my main point is you can just start with that chisel tip pen, and it does some cool shapes, and make it on its own layer, and then you can bring it into Photoshop, or you could probably do it in Sketchbook Pro as well, or Paint Tool Sci. Paint Tool Sci also has the same clipping down layer feature that Photoshop does, so you can do the same thing and generate some designs and play around and do a lot. See, one of the important thing was to do a lot of designs and not just do one ship. So put something down, then do another one, put another thing down, and then do another one, then you have a bunch of silhouettes, and then paint all those, and then you've got much more to show and much more to work with. So that's it. Thanks for watching.